This video is sponsored by Frontline Model Hobbies, your one-stop website for all your modelling needs. Check out the store for special offers, pre-orders and also aftermarket accessories. Check out their website. A big thank you to Frontline Model Hobbies. Hello and welcome back to part 3. Now this video is basically going to concentrate on the engine, building it up, painting it, weathering and getting the rest of the airframe all up and running and ready for paint. So slip off your shoes or your slippers, sit back and I'll explain what I'm doing. Now, as you can see, the engine is a multi-part affair, and with this, it's solely plastic. Okay, there's no sort of like add-ons from the resin or the 3D printed parts. However, what you do get, although basic, it's really nice. The detail's sharp, and once, well, mine will have the actual engine bay doors open. It does set off, and it does give you a really sort of like good level of detail. So it's not, you know, a deal breaker if you don't go for, let's say, the rest kit replacement, what was it, 3D parts, which are absolutely phenomenal. They really are. But if you're not into that and you just want a basic sort of like setup of the engine, then you can't go wrong with this. ICM have done a really good job for this particular compartment. So when everything was all up and running on cocktail sticks on Blue Tack, it was time for paint. Now again, I've used a Tamiya black for the primer, and then I've gone with Hataka's US interior green. Now I have seen reference pictures where it seems to have zinc oxide yellow and not green. Whether that was a particularly standard thing on a manufacturer of the Cobra, I don't know, but most of the pictures that I've seen had the interior green, so that's what I went for. When that was done, I went with the engine parts, and for this I used AK Interactive's Extreme Metals, this one being the steel. Now I did tart it up a little bit with some lightning paints, namely the polished aluminium, and once that was done, once that was dry, I covered it with a Tamiya clear coat, and then I could proceed with a sort of like weathering, and for this I used a raw umber, not my normal sepia but a raw umber, because I wanted it a little bit lighter for this particular part of the kit. There were a few bits and pieces, namely from the cockpit area, which couldn't be added at a particular point. So I left them off and waited until such times as I can actually use the weathering products themselves. So along with the engine bay, I've used the same oils on the firewall for the cockpit, and also the armoured plating that will sit to protect the co-pilot gunner and the pilot. Now, there are a couple of ways you can take the oil off. One is using a brush, which I'm using there, just slightly moistened with some AK Interactive's low odor thinners. Or you can use what I call a cotton bud or a Q-tip. Again, slightly coated with the thinners, just going over it, and you can take off as much or as little as you want. So with that done, it was a case of gluing the parts together, and it is pretty self-explanatory. It's not anything major, but again, the parts fit really nicely together. When everything was set and dry from the oil, it was time to put everything together into one side of the actual fuselage. Now you've got the firewalls both forward and aft, you've got the engine exhaust to put in, and also the firewall, which I'm putting just in there. All these parts fit very well. The only thing you've got to watch is when you put the actual other half of the fuselage on, that it all marries up. But if you do one part at a time and put the fuselage on, just to make sure everything marries up, when you come to it right at the very end, putting it together, you shouldn't have any issues whatsoever. But as I can say now, it does fit really well. Now, that was in, all glued in, so I was happy. Now, one thing I did find is getting the cockpit in on one side only of the fuselage was quite problematic. So what I did do was put the both fuselage halves together, as you can see, tape the back, just so I can get a bit of wiggle room in moving the front part of the fuselage apart, and then sitting the actual cockpit into the fuselage halves. Now once that was done, blob of glue, let it set, let it dry, and that's it. That's all you need to do. It fits really nicely, and then you can carry on putting on the belly plate and the skids and everything else that you can put on until you actually start painting. Yeah, don't forget nose weight, it will be required. So yeah, make sure, don't forget. Anyway, the front nose cone, it was okay. I did have to do a little bit of filling, but when it actually came on to putting the actual nose cone, or nose front, should I say, onto the fuselage, just take your time, just wiggle it around, just pop it in, and it should fit. Well, mine did, but what I did do is, looking at reference pictures, there wasn't, I couldn't find a panel line that's actually on where it is, so I did fill it and sand it off, and it was absolutely fine. The actual base plate, or the belly plate on the fuselage, that again, you just got to take your time, pop it in, and then just glue it. The fit on that was quite good, I must say. However, there was a slight gap, just only a slight one. So I'll just use a bit of plastic card, use the Tamiya extra thin, just popped it in, let it dry, and then just sand it down nice and flush. Now, hopefully you can see that the actual fuselage, or the parts for the fuselage, is quite substantial, but goes together really, really quickly. Now, point to note is the front turret. Now, these parts here are for the minigun and the grenade launcher. Now, when you're actually trying to fit these on, they do look a bit gappy and they don't fit. Don't worry about it, that's supposed to be like that, because not only will the turret actually go left and right, but the actual guns will individually go up and down as well. So don't think you've got a bad fit, you haven't. It's just how it is, that's how it is, so don't worry about it. The last bits of the cockpit are now going in, and these are the sort of like ballistic plates for the co-pilot, gunner and actual main pilot itself. These just slide straight in with a bit of super glue, and yeah, I would say it's a perfect fit. You don't have to bugger about with it. But also, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but on the actual map case thing there, I did put some maps in there just to add a bit more of a sort of like authenticity. So that's it, ladies and gents. That is the main sort of like build engine, yeah, of the actual kit itself. It is a lovely kit to go together, and even without the actual extras from Special Hobby, it does go together really, really well. So thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Cheerio.